Hi, welcome. My name is Catherine and I am a business English teacher. And today I want to give you some vocabulary. There will be 20 words here that you will come across when using business English. Now, what do I mean by business English? I think you can kind of identify the individual words by themselves, English for business, but what does that mean in the real world? Well, if you work for an international company or you work for a part of a company that has locations all over the world, or your management team are international, some of them in the UK, some of them in Germany, some in Australia, and so therefore the language you speak in meetings is English, you are probably using or need to be using business English in the workplace. Now, of course, technical English is vocabulary related to your specific area of work. So if you work in IT, you will have vocabulary related to IT. If you work in HR, a lot of the words you use will be related to HR. Business English is more general, and it is words and vocabulary that you can use to help explain a situation to somebody in your team, your management, a potential customer, potential client, to help explain in more detail what it is you are trying to say. So I hope today these words are going to be helpful and interesting for you, and I hope there are some new words for you today. So our first word that I want to look at today is staples. Staples. Now, staples refers to something that is necessary, is needed in the workplace, or related to that topic. It is needed. It is the most important thing in order for that topic, that idea to continue. So, for example, consumer staples, the consumer is the person using the product, so your customer. Consumer staples refers to things that we as consumers, as customers, need. It's not just that we want them, we like using them, we need them. For example, soap, washing up liquid, detergent for our washing machines, petrol for our car. These things are staples because without them, we can't continue to live a life. Of course, that's a bit dramatic. Of course you can. But in the world, in the society that we live in order to do your job properly, in order to take every opportunity available to you, you probably need to have your own transportation, a car, and you probably need to be able to wash your clothes so you can go to work looking fresh and clean. These are what we call consumer staples. Now, we can use the word staples with any word that comes before it. For example, company staples would mean the necessary things a company needs in order to run. My personal staples, for example, these are my staples for teaching English. And maybe I have, I don't know, a rabbit pen, a notebook, the things that I need, I must have in order to do my job. So whenever you hear this phrase staples, that's what it means. It's the things you need. And without them, you can't do your daily tasks. A way to remember this is a staple. I'm sure you've seen this in the workplace. And it holds pieces of paper together. This is called a staple. And the machine that staples it together is called a stapler. Without this, your pieces of paper don't stay together. They fly all over the place. So you can think of this as without your staples, your company, your business, your team, yourself cannot do your job. You're all over the place. Raw materials. Now, this might sound a bit strange if this is your first time hearing this phrase. If it's not, you can probably guess what it means. When we describe something as being raw, we mean it hasn't been cooked yet. Typically food. If meat is raw, it hasn't been cooked yet. If a vegetable is raw, it hasn't been cooked yet. So we can apply the same idea to raw materials. A raw material is something that hasn't been cooked yet. For example, plastic comes from oil. So the raw material, well, actually it's a byproduct of oil, but the raw material of plastic is oil because the oil needs to be cooked. There's a lot of things they do to the oil. They don't cook it, but I'm using cook as a metaphor so you can understand. So it needs to be cooked, it needs to be processed before it can be plastic. Perhaps you work in an energy company, or you work in an industry that works with raw materials, for example, coal, oil, gas. It is the material before anything has been done to it. And of course, a company would want those raw materials in order to create finished goods. Finished goods, as it suggests, are the items, the products, the goods, the resources created once you've processed this raw material. So your raw material might be oil, but your final product, your finished good, is plastic water bottles. Or your raw material might be bamboo, but your finished good is bamboo fabric that you can then use to make cushions, textiles, anything within the home. Clothing even. So you have two phrases there that are very linked, the raw material and the finished good. The finished goods. If you work in sales or production or within a warehouse, I'm sure you will come across these words a lot because you are part of the process of turning these raw materials into finished products that your customer can buy, your client can buy. And I keep saying customer and then client. What's the difference between those two? I think I covered this in another video, but I can't remember which one. So I'll tell you again. A customer is typically someone that buys a product, whereas a client is somebody that buys a service. So for example, lawyers, architects, interior designers, they would have clients. A small business, a shop, a supermarket has customers. But we often refer to customers as clients if they are big customers for us and if they then go on to sell this product to the customer. For example, let's say I own a furniture warehouse and I have 10 clients. These clients are not buying one sofa each. They are buying 100 sofas from me to then sell to the customer. So they would be my client because they are not the end user of this product. They are part of the process of selling this product. So you use client for two reasons. The first is you are buying a service. The second is if they are part of the sales process, but not the end user. Let me know down below if you, in your business, in your company, have customers or clients. Firm, partnership, or company. Now, we all know what a company is because we've all worked for a company at some point, whether it's a big one, a small one. My very first job was selling ice creams on the beach when I was 15, 16 years old. And the company I worked for was very small. They only had maybe 20 employees. I've also worked for larger companies that have thousands of employees in every country in Europe. So a company typically has a system where you have the C-suite, the CEOs, the COOs, the CFOs, you have senior management, middle management, and then you have all of your employees with their team leaders. And they can be in different countries, of course. What about a firm then? Why are some companies called firms? Or why do some people say I work in a firm, not a company? Well, a firm typically is made up of a partnership. So 2 or more people have gone into business together, and they are the same level in that business. One of them does not own more of the company than the other. One of them does not have more percentage of the company. One of them does not earn more than the other. They are equal. And typically this partnership will open a firm. Typically a firm offers services to their clients. So again, there's that word client. A firm has clients, not customers, because they are offering services like lawyers. Lawyers work for a firm, not a company. They can, of course, work for a company in the legal department. But when a lawyer opens their own office, this would be a firm and typically a partnership. 2 or more lawyers joining together to open this firm. Merger. Now, this phrase has been used a lot by myself and my students this week because one of my students is experiencing this at their company. A merger is when 2 companies join together in a way that benefits them both. The idea with a merger is that both sides, both companies that join together, are happy with this decision. Perhaps both companies are trying to target the same audience, or perhaps one company is very famous in Europe and one company is very famous in Asia, but they sell the same product. So by joining together, by merging, they can target the Asia and European market together. I tried to find a couple of examples of this to help you understand. So the first is Heinz and Kraft. Now, both of these companies make food products, but they were both targeting different audiences. Another example, if you like watching films, Walt Disney and 21st Century Fox both make movies, both make films, very famous films, and they merged. So now they work together to create these films. Another similar word, but with a slightly different meaning, is acquisition. Acquisition. Now, when a company goes through an acquisition or is acquired by another company, this is not the same as a merger because one company is buying another company. And typically the company being bought doesn't actually want to be bought, but they have to because of financial reasons or they're not doing very well. A really good example of this is Cadbury's, is the UK chocolate tycoon. I can't think of a better word. Nearly every chocolate bar in the UK is made by Cadbury's. They were bought by an American chocolate company called Kraft. Now, in my opinion, after they were bought by Kraft, the quality of the chocolate actually went down. But that's only my opinion. So this is an example of an acquisition because Cadbury's didn't really want to be bought by Kraft, but they had no other choice, no other option. So when one of the companies isn't excited about this move to be one company, it's an acquisition. When both of the companies are happy and they go into it as a partnership, this is a merger. 2 words you might come across often, and they have a really simple meaning, but they sound complicated, are surplus and deficit. Now, surplus just means more than you need. And to be in surplus at the end of the month is a very good thing because it means you've made more money than you've spent, or you've made more product than you thought you would, or you have more customer leads than the month before. To be in surplus is a positive. To be in deficit is a negative because it means you've spent more than you thought you would, you didn't make as much as you thought you would, or you didn't have as many new clients or customers as you thought you would. If you work in the finance department of your company, your organization, you work in the legal department, you might see this often. Surplus, deficit. Now, go back to the merger acquisition. I have another word for you, subsidiaries. Subsidiaries. What is a subsidiary? Well, a subsidiary is a company that is owned by another company, a parent company, that's what we would call it. But this original company has its own responsibility, has its own name, its own brand, its own logo, its own mission statement, its own ideas, but it is owned, protected by this parent company. A fantastic example of that is Google. Google is actually a subsidiary of Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company. So perhaps the company you work for is a subsidiary. It's actually owned by a parent company. Recession and depression. Now, although these are negative words, they do not mean that moment when you are so upset about something you can't leave your bed, you can't leave your home. No, that depression is another meaning. Recession is what we're in now and what we saw after COVID. It is a general decline in economic activity that lasts more than a few months and typically affects everything in a country. It will affect employment, sales, the cost of living. It affects many different things in a country. So during COVID, we saw this recession. And even though we overcame this recession a bit this year, we are still technically in recession. Depression comes after a recession. So it's like the next level down. A depression is when a recession lasts more than 2 years. So it's a huge downturn. It's a huge decline, a huge decrease in financial activity in a country, in the world, in a nation. Typically after a depression, we see recovery. And this is, of course, the recovery of the economy. People spend more. People find jobs, companies start to do better and pay their employees more. And this is a cycle that happens I don't know how often, but it does happen. You'll have a recession, a depression, then recovery and growth. Contract. Now, a contract is something you sign, or not necessarily you, but somebody signs with another person, another group of people, saying you will do something or will not do something. So every time you start a new job, you have to sign a contract that says, I will do X amount of hours. I will not be late. If I am late, this is what I will do. I will only take this amount of holiday. I will only be sick 5 times in the year. Anything like this is a contract. When you rent a house, you enter into a contract saying, I will pay this much a month. I will look after the house. I will return the house as it was when I moved in. A contractual agreement is the same thing. It is that agreement between the two parties. The contractual agreement that you both sign states all of these things you will and will not do, and you both agree to it. I've included this because if you work in HR, if you work in the legal side of your company, organization, if you do any sort of service giving, so like myself, I teach English. When a student signs up to my lessons, I am signing a contractual agreement that I will give them those lessons. And they are signing a contractual agreement that they agree to pay for those lessons. This is quite a nice phrase to have if you work in any sort of service giving. Even if you create products, you and your supplier have a contractual agreement that they will supply the products and you will pay for those products. Brand loyalty versus brand image. What do you think the difference in these two could mean? Let's start with the easiest one, brand image. Now this is the image, the impression, the reputation that you give to the market, that you give to your customer, that you give to your clients. So if you have an image as a company of being very professional, if your brand is very fun, very creative, this is your image. This is what other people think of you. And we all have an image. You have an image of me right now. You create an image. It's the same. If I put some brand logos on the screen, you can immediately think of things that these brands do, how they make you feel. Brand loyalty is how loyal those customers, competitors, clients are to you. So for example, if you buy an iPhone, every time you need a new phone, do you go back to Apple or do you change to an Android, a Samsung? If you like a particular type of whiskey, do you always go back to that same brand? If you love Mexican food and there's a great Mexican restaurant in your area, do you always go back to that restaurant because you feel loyal to them? Because you know every time you go, you will get good customer service. The food will taste great. The price is what you are expecting. The loyalty is how likely your customer is going to keep coming to you and also recommend you to friends. We're nearly finished. I've got a few more words for you. If you've been enjoying this video so far and you've learned something, let's try again. Please like this video and subscribe if you have not already. I would also really appreciate it if you send this video to somebody that is also learning English. It really helps me out when you share these videos, and I really appreciate it when you do share these videos. So thank you for those of you that do. Our next word is overheads. Overheads. Now this is quite a nice word if you think about it metaphorically, because overhead means something that's hanging over your head. It could be causing you worry, stress, anxiety. It could make you feel heavy because it's always over your head. This is because an overhead is something you have to pay every month, either to keep your business running, to keep your website working, to keep the office that you pay for open. Whatever it is, whatever type of business you have, an overhead is something you have to pay. Now, your company will have overheads. Whether you are involved in that process or not depends on your position in the company. If you work in accounts, if you work in operations, perhaps you are involved in the overhead process because you are the one that pays these accounts, or you are the one that works out how much you pay each month. But typically, if you don't work in the finance department of your company, you don't have any idea how much the overheads are each month. Procurement. Procurement. This is a lovely word to say. To procure means to locate, to find. And often we talk about procurement when we're talking about finding goods, finding those raw materials, finding services, and agreeing a price, signing a contractual agreement to procure the services of this organization. Signing a contractual agreement with our supplier to procure the raw materials needed for our finished goods. Wow, I managed to get so many words in that sentence. I'm proud of myself. So procurement really just means finding. And some companies have a procurement department, which means the department that finds all of these materials, finds all of these suppliers. If you're a smaller company, you probably don't have a procurement department, and probably just somebody in your team is responsible for finding these products. And my last two words for you today are linked together. They are production line and time to market. Your production line is the process from the raw material to the finished goods. The production line of a car is from the moment it is those metals, those plastics, all the way to the moment that it is a drivable, usable car. That is the production line. And this production line could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be a year if it's a very fancy, expensive car. And time to market is linked very closely to production line, because time to market is talking about the time it takes from the minute you say, yes, let's make that, to the minute the customer can have it, can buy it. Now, sometimes a production line only gets started once the customer pays. So this doesn't have a time to market because you pay me, I start making. But for example, if Apple brings out a new phone, They might say our time to market is 4 months, meaning we have already started making the phone, and in 4 months' time, it will be ready for the customer to buy. So time to market is time from the minute they say, here's a new item, to the minute you can actually buy that item. We are the market. The customer is the market. Now, I'm going to put some sentences on the screen now with words missing from them. And what I want you to do is try and fit in some of the words I've used today in these sentences. It's a great exercise for you to try and make sure you understood what I've taught you today. You can either pause the screen here and do it, or you can capture the screen and do it later. It's entirely up to you. But I also have something I want to talk to you about, which is I will be running a business English course. I've been working on this for a while, and I wanted to make sure I had enough information to make it worth your time, worth your money. I know I teach business English on YouTube, but it's very different when you join a course and you have a plan of exactly what you're going to learn, and I can give you feedback on how you're doing. I know many YouTubers claim to be able to teach you something, and they all have courses you can buy. So how do you know that this is going to be a course that's actually worth your time and money? Well, I'd like to tell you a bit about myself and see if that helps your understanding of what you could learn in this course, or what I could give to you. So I have been teaching English for 4 years, nearly 5 years now actually. And before I was teaching English, I worked in marketing. I worked in fashion marketing, sales and advertising. And my degree, my education is in marketing and sales. So I'm not just teaching business English from a textbook, it's all my own knowledge as well, and my own experience of working with suppliers, working with customers and clients, and having to deal with bosses that don't listen. When I teach one-on-one, the English is very specific to that student's industry. Now, in this business English course, I will not be going into so much detail because, of course, if it's a group lesson, there will be multiple people there from different industries. But if you are interested in improving the way you speak in the workplace, improving your understanding of business English, if you liked this video today, if your company is international, and you work with native speakers and non-native speakers, it's going to be over 12 weeks, an hour a week. So I'm sure you'll be able to fit it into your schedule, into your routine. And we will go through the basics of business, vocabulary, phrasal verbs. So if you do like my YouTube channel and you find it very helpful, but you just need a bit more, maybe motivation, I highly recommend having a look. I will link in the description box the link to all of that information, the cost, the dates. I'm really excited about this because I love teaching business English. I love giving people the skills they need to go to that next level, to go to their boss and say, hey, I need a promotion, or to go to their team and say, I'm really good at presentations in English, let me do this. Or to apply to a job that they never dreamed of applying to because the interview was in English. I'm really excited about this, and I hope you can be too. And the first 4 people to send me an email about this, I will give you a discount code so you can receive up to 40% off the first run of this course. As I said, all the information will be in the description box, so please go and read that down below. If you don't want to join the course, no problem. I will keep doing videos as usual. I hope you found something interesting here. Thank you for watching this video today. I know it's longer than most of my videos. I feel like I've been talking for hours. I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope you enjoy everything you have planned this week, and I will see you next time. Have a fantastic day. Goodbye.